Hello and welcome to this video series featuring select single-player Far Cry Arcade maps that I built and published between 2020 and 2022. This was an excellent creative outlet for me during the COVID pandemic, and I wanted to showcase some of my proudest achievements here, and also walk through some of the creative processes that I used. Hope you enjoy. This map, Blue Bomber 1987, was published in September of 2020 and took about a month total to create. The objective here with this map was an ambitious one. What I wanted to do was take a classic 8-bit action game and recreate it in its entirety in the Far Cry map editor engine. I knew that it was going to be really pushing it with the budgets, especially with objects on this one, but I feel like it was pretty successful. Now, I had also considered doing something similar to Mega Man 2, which would have been Blue Bomber 1989. However, there's no way that the limitations of this map editor would allow for it, and I was kind of looking forward to maybe a map editor being included in Far Cry 6, but that didn't happen, so this is the only one. And here we go. For the title screen, I wanted to make it very clear that this is absolutely a homage to the original 1987 game, and so I used one of the 2D sprites from that game and just created this little structure using all of these little blocks. I thought that was a good pixelated throwback to the 1980s and the NES days. And I also, for the loadout, you only have one. It's that top one, labeled P. Everything else is invisible. You only get that one choice when you start off, just like in the original game, because you earn more weapons as you go along. So as you can see at the top of the screen, I pretty much maxed out both the lights, visual effects, and objects budgets, and strained the memory a little bit. And that's because I had to make this game exactly like the original one was, where you have 6 sub-stages that you have to go through before you fight through another set of big stages, and then the final boss at the end. So it takes a while, and the design and the layout and the arrangement of all of this stuff took quite a bit of time, quite a lot of effort. Calculating and keeping track of stuff, organization is absolutely necessary for a project like this. Players start off in this room, which is your stage select room. From here you can choose any of the 6 sub-stages that you want to go through and play them in any order that you like. You have to go through all 6 of them before you can proceed to the end, though. So what you would do is you would go through any of these portals and play the stage, come back, and then your reward for defeating the boss of that stage is in the form of a fresh new weapon. It appears on the ground right there in front of the stage door. So we have the Elect stage, Fire, Bomb, Ice, Guts, Cut. And these are actually in the exact same order of arrangement as they are in the stage select screen in the original 87 title. When designing these stages, it was very important for me to try and reflect the source material as much as I could. So, like for example, the Elect stage is a very vertical stage and features branching paths with a whole bunch of environmental hazards. The Fire stage is almost entirely indoors and features flames everywhere and a whole bunch of pipes. Pipes, everywhere pipes, and of course environmental hazards. Here we have the Bomb stage, which of course features explosives everywhere, and also these weird metal sphere structures in the background. And like the original game, it starts off above ground, you fight your way underground, and then eventually you drop down a ladder to reach the boss chamber, way down here. In the original game, the Ice stage features frozen palm trees in the background, where you start off above ground, you battle your way through the enemies, you drop down a hole, and then go into the underground ice caverns, where you fight through some more bad guys, and then eventually make your way down to the boss. The Guts stage is very rocky and dry, starts off above ground, and then you work your way down into a mining type area, where you fight the rest of the way. And now the Cut stage is very military themed. Again, it's one where you start off above ground, and then you go underground, and then here I have you fighting your way through these underground bunkers to get to the boss. After completing the initial 6 substages, you can collect your weapons and travel to Dr. Wily's fortress. This is where you begin the endgame process. So you spawn out here and fight your way through this military structure, this literal fortress, and make yourself all the way down until you get to what was probably the hardest boss battle in the original game, and that is, of course, the Yellow Demon. In here, I decided to represent it with this behemoth zombie, because he's tough, and how to defeat it is you have to avoid his attacks and then strike when the opportunity is right, and that matches with the original setup, too. Also, in the original game, it had that full black background, and this room is full of black objects, but just these yellow lights on it. And these are all destructible, so there's a dynamic kind of gameplay happening in this boss battle. In the original Mega Man game, after you beat the Yellow Demon, you have to go through a series of other stages that's effectively just as long as the game you just played already, and you have to fight all of those same boss battles again, defeat all of those same enemies. And the way that I decided to approach that here was having 3 separate stages, each of which is a hybrid of 2 of the bosses from the original set of 6. So for this one, this is the first one, this is a hybrid of the bomb stage and the fire stage. So I took elements from both stages and just kind of mixed them all together. Here we have all the pipes from the fire stage, we have explosives. There's a really cool part here where as soon as somebody almost inevitably blows these things up, then all the lights go out everywhere and there's this bright, brilliant fire, and it makes the whole thing more intense from then on. Got more pipes, more bombs, more flames. And then the boss chamber features both of them at once, and design elements from both of the stages too. You got all these explosives, and you got a whole bunch of flames. What could possibly go wrong, right? After that, you get a hybridization of the Guts and Ice stages, and you fight both of those bosses at the end here. And then at the end, you go through the hybrid of Elec and Cut stages, which is military and high voltage. At the end of the Cut and Elec hybrid stage, you have both of those bosses together again, but there's one more challenge that the original game has for you, and that is that you have to fight a clone of yourself. Now, I couldn't accurately represent that here, so what I decided to do was to put Jacob in. He's definitely the toughest of the human AIs that you can face, so I thought that was most fitting. And to make it a more reasonably elevated challenge, I just decided to throw him in the mix with these other 2 bosses as well. Now you have to take on 3 at once. I also want to point out something else here. Do you notice this tiled background wall here? This is precisely the same colors and pattern from the original game. I wanted to keep that kind of authenticity intact. And then, after all of that, you have to fight the final boss, Dr. Wily, which in this case is represented by, of course, Joseph Seed, because who else would it be? And he's accompanied by a couple of tough henchmen with turrets, and this machine-like structure that I built inspired from the original game. The actual boss battle at the end of Mega Man 1987 is Dr. Wily in a robot similarly structured to this one. After you defeat the final boss, you are teleported to my own custom-made little end message section where I express a little bit of gratitude. Which is true. And that's it. That's the end of the stage. Let's have a look, shall we?